If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to easily access Action News Jax Now using your Roku device. First, launch Roku. Next, use the menu list to scroll down to the search feature. Then, use the remote to enter Action News Jax into the search bar, and then click Action News Jax thumbnail. Once you see this screen, go ahead and select Add App. Wait a few seconds for it to install. Once it finishes installing, press the star button on your remote and click on Move App or Move App to the top. Finally, select the app back on your home screen to open it. Now you can watch all the great content on Action News Jax Now. Live daily breaking news.
We have breaking news happening right now in Clay County.
First alert weather and traffic.
Looks like we have a tornado warning. Let's take a look at that.
Action Sports Jax 24/7.
We've got the Brent and Austin Show daily, live sporting events, and long-form interviews you can't see anywhere else.
And shows like Law and Crime and much more. And that's how you access Action News Jax Now using your Roku device.
Welcome back to Club 904. The good news, we have figured out how to get YouTube up and running again, folks. Yay! The bad news is I just missed y'all by a split second there, so apologies for the wait. Let's hear from Cole Van Lanen. I am excited to take your questions and answer them on the other side before we welcome in Evan Klosky, WTSP in Tampa, here to Club 904. So I'm going to give you guys the full, unedited conversation with Cole Van Lanen from Monday. Lot of intel here. He talks about playing right tackle. He believes he's healthier now than he's ever been. He's identified deficiencies in his game through his rehab process. Apparently, the conversation about moving Anton to left tackle wasn't overnight. It was something that was largely discussed, widely discussed in the Miller Electric Center. Really good stuff from Cole. We walked away, myself, Jamal St. Cyr, and Ryan O'Halloran, from this conversation, and we all said, I think that was one of the best interviews we've gotten from Cole since he arrived in Jacksonville in 2022. And so here he is while we get YouTube up and running for everybody. So make sure you leave your comments, your questions there. CV.
How's it feel? Back out there practicing a little bit?
Yeah, feels great. I'm just excited to be back.
What has this process kind of been like? I mean, you got the deal done late last season, you get hurt late last season, then you go into rehab and trying to get ready to get back.
Yeah, it was definitely a whirlwind of emotions during all that time. Got some news we didn't want to hear, and we've just been working really hard here to get back to where we are now and get back on the field.
How tough has it been kind of watching the offensive line, some of the guys getting banged up, the turn as they try and figure that out from the side?
Yeah, it's tough. I'm in the same scenario where I was, and it's tough to see our room struggling, and there's nothing really I can do about it. I was on my own path trying to get back, and I'm glad I can bring some presence now and get back on the field and kind of help that. I'm glad guys are getting back now, though, and everything's going in the right direction.
As much as you can share comparatively to other injuries, other recoveries, what exactly was the last 8-9 months for you?
It's been a lot of work, a lot of time. Definitely blessed with our staff here. We've put in a lot of work and time to get back. Like I said, it was kind of not news we were expecting when the injury happened, and we've just done everything possible to get back, definitely early, and feel good, and all the thanks to the staff here, because we really did put a lot of time and work into getting to the point we are now.
Not only was it, okay, now you've got an 8-month recovery, but in the interim, it was at first like, oh, can you play the next week? So how do you even juxtapose the idea of trying to play with the injury to now, oh wait, now it's going to be an 8-month recovery?
Yeah, it's playoff time. We're on a roll. I really wanted to be out there. We were going to do whatever it took, as long as I couldn't hurt myself more. Obviously didn't happen, and then it was go time. The next goal was we got to get through what I had and get back on the field and play good football. And again, I'm just really excited to be back now to work on that progression to get back on the field.
What other knee injuries had you ever had?
I haven't had. My knees have been, knock on wood, will stay great. That was my first knee injury. So
more so I asked that just because it wasn't like some of these cats who now it's like third ACL, fourth ACL, and they've been through this before. For you, this was an entirely new experience.
Yeah, completely new experience. I've heard these injuries are grind. They are, but you go into a great mindset. Like I said, the staff here has been incredible. And just the amount of attention I've gotten to get to this point, it's been amazing. So really, really happy with where we're at. Couldn't have asked for more. Everything's gone great the entire process. So,
what point did you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
I would say getting into camp, I knew where we were at. We were doing really well. I knew at some point I would be getting off PUP in the middle of camp and then progressing to being able to play on the field.
Was there a moment, whether it was running, whether it was jumping, that it was like, oh, I can do this again?
Yeah, for sure. We've been running for a while now. That was always, those are the numbers you want to hit, the little things in rehab that you want to strive for and become better at. And in a lot of ways, I'm better than I was before now. So we've really taken this rehab process and molded it in a way to better myself. And I'm really excited to put everything together once the time comes.
How much work do you think, or practice do you feel like you need to feel good going week one?
Yeah, I would say right now that's all up in the air. I've missed a lot of ball. That's what it kind of comes down to. It really depends on how fast this process dials up, and then we'll see kind of where we're at on the field and how we're playing, how we're feeling. But ultimately, hopefully not too much time.
Reaction to just the progression ascension of Anton this offseason, getting to watch it here in Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Anton's doing things we all knew that he can do. He's already been doing them on the right for how long. Him and I, we knew he'd be fine on the left side, and he's doing great. He's excelling well, and I think the new position change has turned the dial on him even more to really push himself, and he's doing a great job.
Do you have a conversation with him when it starts becoming apparent, like, hey, he may be being the left tackle moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we've had those conversations. This wasn't in the dark for all of us. I think he's going to excel well, and for me, I've played a lot of ball at the right side, and I'm excited to play right tackle.
When you get back into teamwork and pads, is it going to be easier to get your run game rhythm or your pass game rhythm?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. Again, I don't think it's going to be that much time. Hopefully it's like riding a bike, but, it's just I missed a lot of balls. So it's just going to take a second to get adjustments to the speed of the game, where you're going against, use of hands, just getting in that position again. We've been doing Indy for a while now. I'm confident in what I'm doing so far, and just got to get those team reps.
How are you better than you were before?
Huh?
You said you may be better than you were before. How are you better than you were before?
I just feel being in shape, I think my strength, I think my speed, my explosiveness. Again, there's a lot of things that we are allowed to understand that were weaknesses before and work on them. Just because we're off to the side doesn't mean that's not stuff that we can work on. And I feel like we've really attacked those points really well, and I'm excited to translate that on the field.
Appreciate you,
Appreciate
boss.
it, Cole. Thanks, man.
5K before you.
Thank you again to Cole Van Lanen for meeting with us on Monday. His first availability since being activated off the physically unable to perform list. Our thank you to our good engineers and producers at Action Sports Jacks. We are back up live and running on all of our various channels in the network. Appreciate you guys hopping over from Twitter to YouTube and beyond. And of course, we will make sure that this program is available on demand wherever you get your podcast immediately following today's episode, podcast form, as well as video. Let's get to some of your questions before we welcome in Evan Klosky around 2:30 Eastern time, beginning with Hef, who says, screen game, a bit of a concern. That's curious given how offensive line coach Sean Serrett is coaching it in the room, because 3 of the 5 linemen were a part of a decent screen game team previously. I am assuming that he is referring to the previous iteration of the Jaguars under Doug Peterson and Phil Rauscher. And I think that the screen game was good. I don't think it was Tampa Bay's screen game for that matter. And that's where I think some of the frustration lies for Liam. I think that, and I don't want to speak or pretend to know offensive line the way that obviously these men do who coach it. And our friend Hef, who of course is our offensive line guru here in Twitter land, and Jaguar YouTube land. But ultimately, like, I'm just here to tell you, like, that's what I saw. I saw, once again, a concerted effort by Liam Cohen to try to call plays in the screen game, and it got snuffed out. And I don't have an answer to it. I don't know if it's being coached differently. I don't know if it's a different scheme. I don't know if they're trying different things because it's practice and not a game-like setting. But that's what I saw today. And maybe someone else will have a different opinion, but that's what I saw at the Miller Electric Center. From Ether Dark, anyone else slightly disappointed that we won't see Travis Hunter get a pick 6 against Shador? I'm sure we'll pick apart Watson, but it will be a little reminder of who got them to the top in college. Hey, listen, I wouldn't put it out of question. We never know with the nasty man. The best ability is availability, in the words of Doug Marrone. And the nasty man has not been available all that much. The nasty man, of course, is Deshaun Watson, for those of you who get the show. And so there's no saying that he could go down. I don't wish that upon anyone. He also could have his mental toughness be affected by booing? And then all of a sudden you have to insert Shador. But look, let's not put the cart before the horse. The Jaguars know they got to take care of business against the Cleveland Browns. But I will say this. I'm going to go back to something I led the program with. The Cleveland Browns have to come to Duval week 1. They got to go to Tampa week 2. These are two good-looking teams, at least in a lone joint practice against each other. I was impressed by the level of competition between the Jaguars and the Buccaneers. And again, it wasn't like last week where it felt like the Jaguars started out hot and then maybe lost a little bit of steam just because they were overpowering the Panthers from the jump. And the Panthers clawed their way back into it, pun intended. And then, of course, the lone joint practice against the Saints 2 weeks earlier, where the Saints really dominated the jump. And then the Jags found their way back into it and really made a statement in the red zone periods. And so, again, I don't want to put too much pressure and place too much emphasis on these joint practices as an indicator of what a team may be. But I did have a moment today on the field at the Miller Electric Center where I said, good luck, Browns, to myself, because both these teams look very, very good. One more question before we take our next time out, and then we welcome in one Evan Klosky. Let's hear from PJ. The run game doing well gives me great confidence. Yes. And then from John, are there any rumbling on cuts after the next preseason game? I don't think so, John, because I think ultimately most of this roster is pretty much set. And that's not to say that there aren't guys still vying for roster spots this weekend in the final preseason game and, of course, through these joint practices. But the cuts are going to be between roster spot 48 and 53. And there's a good chance that none of those players are even active on game day because you only get 48 jerseys. And so while it is going to be a tough cut, and Liam Cohen stressed that, it's the day that no head coach wants to take part in, but they have to. It's part of the job. I think that the bulk of this roster, we know who those players are. And maybe there'll be a surprise or two, but I would say at this point in time, yeah, you kind of know. Never rule out a surprise. Last year, we were surprised that they kept 2 undrafted free agent pass rushers, but they did. And both those gentlemen, Danny Strigow and BJ Green, have contributed since then and looked pretty good today in joint practice. Let's take another break. When we return, Evan Klosky joins us to break down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One more practice to go, too, between the Jags and the Bucs. It's the first time the Jags have ever done a back-to-back joint practice. We'll talk about what that means straight ahead.
Sports. It's a hometown business filled with hometown people trying to make you feel right at home.
Chris Conley, Jacksonville University.
Walker Wright, class of 2018, West Nassau High School.
Michael Young, Fletcher High School.
Baker Sports started in a grassroots way and now outfits much of the Southeast.
Samuel Coffrin, Paxton School for Advanced Studies.
High school sports, travel sports, youth sports of all kinds. They are a one-stop shop carrying Nike, Adidas, Under Armour brands, and more.
Vincent Caldes, Oak Leaf High School.
Tony Mazzio, Sandalwood High School, class of 2002.
Whether it's sports teams on the field or it's your team in the workplace, like our Action Sports Jacks team, and community events like the Dream 18 Golf Tournament, and many others.
Cole Tilley, Hilliard High School.
Reagan Webb, Eagles View Academy.
Look good, feel good, play good with Baker Sports. Custom sports apparel since 1997. Shop with the hometown team at bakersport.com.
Action Sports Jacks 24/7 is your home for high school football in the 904. Get ready for each week of action Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock with the Blitz Breakdown, talking everything high school football in the Jacksonville area. And when the lights get bright on Friday night, Action Sports Jacks 24/7 is there with live broadcasts of our game of the week and the Friday night Zone Blitz, giving you live looks into the biggest games in the area and coverage lasting until midnight. Here's the kick, the snap, the hold, the kick is blocked!
And they're going for the end zone, and they got a guy! Touchdown! And what?
Find these broadcasts available on YouTube, X, Facebook, and of course, ActionSportsJacks.com. And the action doesn't stop there. Find even more high school football on the Action Sports Jacks social channels with content posted throughout the week. When you're looking for the best high school football coverage in the 904, Action Sports Jacks 24/7 is ready for the Blitz.
Welcome back into Club 904. Appreciate everyone rolling with the punches with some of our technical difficulties off the top of the show. This whole program will be available on demand on the Action Sports Jacks YouTube channel, as well as wherever you get your podcasts immediately following the conclusion of today's episode. Let's keep it moving. Let's welcome, oh no, he just disappeared. No! we were all set to welcome Evan Klosky into Club 904 for the first time. Good friend of mine, as I shared with some of our contemporaries here in Jacksonville today, and of course from Tampa Town as well. I believe he's one of the most talented storytellers in all of local news. There he is. He's back. He's hanging outside. Like, Evan, it's hot out, and I appreciate you repping our friends at Circa. Here you are doing a podcast outside. I mean, God bless you, man. You're like me. You're from the Northeast. Aren't you hot right now?
Yeah, well, we are doing a lot of training at work, and our lovely studio is in the middle of the newsroom. It's a weird setup. So nonetheless, it was quite the okey doke for me to be like, okay, this isn't going to work since we're doing a bunch of shows right now and rehearsals. So I got it back, and I slipped into something comfortable here with my lovely Circus Sports shirt that I got on my bachelor party. So
we love Circus Sports, truly, and I'm not paid to say this. It is truly one of those bucket list items as a sports fan. I'm not even encouraging gambling. I'm just encouraging it is a pilgrimage as a sports fan.
You do a football Sunday in that sports book. It's a heck of a time.
Your life will never be the same. Trust me. Evan, let's go big picture here. We're excited to dive into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the fallout from joint practice number 1, but also who are the Bucs in 2026. I'll give you some good news off the top before we get to the comments of Baker Mayfield about toughness. I thought comparatively to when the Carolina Panthers rolled in here last week, and maybe it's because I've gone on so many Carolina stations since, and they've all been in a panic because the Jaguars absolutely blasted them the first half of practice last week. Comparatively, it was night and day for me. Like the Jaguars, I thought consistently looked great against the Panthers, looked good here today against the Buccaneers. But in terms of the actual opposition, if I'm a Panthers fan, if you were to watch the video of last week's joint practice and then today, the Buccaneers and the Jags, it felt like night and day. So that's the good news for the NFC South fans here in the chat. But what's kind of been the reaction you've seen? I know you're still in Tampa because you guys got a lot going on at WTSP, but what's kind of been the general reaction, not just from today, but throughout the course of Bucs training camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Reuben Bain Jr., when he was drafted to the organization, I think there was a seismic shift in the way that we were viewing this team, the potential of what this defense can become. Because for the longest time since Shaq Barrett essentially tore his Achilles, 4 years ago, the team hasn't had anyone who can suck up the gravity and be a force on the edge to get some sacks. And the way that football has moved right now, you want to rush 4 and drop everybody back. The Buccaneers tried to do that last year. Didn't really work because you don't have the studs there on the defensive line, not to mention Kalijah Kancey got hurt in week 2 of last year. So that game plan that they entered the year with fell apart real quickly. But by all accounts, Reuben Bain Jr., he looks like the dude he looked like at Miami. And you know this, just when you talk with team officials, when it comes to rookies, usually you get the, yeah, he looks like this, but, cool down. He's got to learn this. He's got to learn that. Like, we're going to ease him in, so on and so forth. With Reuben Bain Jr., everybody in front of the camera, behind the camera, it's like, nah, this dude is the real deal. Like, I cannot believe that we got this guy. And the enthusiasm for him has gone up. So I think defensively, it's going to start there. I don't think enough people are talking about Yaya Diaby, Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea. Reuben Bain Jr. is one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL if they're fully healthy. And I think that Todd Bowles can do some really fun things defensively if they are healthy throughout the season. So you have that. And then offensively speaking, as long as the offensive line is also healthy, which they did not have last year, something that Liam Cohen did have 2 years ago when he was with the Buccaneers. I mean, I think fans are disenchanted with this team locally because of what happened last year, and they're not going to kind of get fooled by a false sense of security if they start out hot. But I mean, if they do hang around and they stay healthy, like, I see this team winning the NFC South and hosting a playoff game. And I would say that if they can win a playoff game, that's probably Todd Bowles extracting the best out of this team. And who knows what happens when you make the playoffs, but I think that's a realistic outlook.
Let me get your one-shot set up. I realized as you went into that wonderful dissertation, we did not. Let's get this going. Boom. We got Evan on the one shot and the 2 shot. Oh, yeah, we're cooking with gas
now I
here.
lost you audio-wise.
Oh, am I back
Hold
now?
on.
No.
Let me go back out and in. This happened last time when I logged in. 1 second.
No, I love that. Don't we love that? Let's bring him back in. We've had a lot of technical difficulties. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. And don't worry, Evan's only with us till 2:45, at which time I will answer all your questions. And yes, Ether Dark, thank you for the breaking news. Our condolences to the family and estate of Dolly Parton, who has passed away. Evan, not to welcome you back on somber news. Hopefully you can hear me. We do pay our respects to Dolly Parton, who has passed away at the age of 80. So unfortunately, we lose Dolly. We also lost Evan briefly. He is back now to shed some more light on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll avoid the one shot because you're not the only one of our clubbers who's joined us, and this has happened in StreamYard. So that's one of the quirks they're going to have to figure out. Let's talk offense. I think part of why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan base locally is disenchanted, because I've seen this nationally, is this notion that Zach Robinson stinks on ice. And I'm just fascinated by it for a litany of reasons, beginning and ending with this. Like, just because you're friends with Liam Cohen doesn't mean you're good at this. But Liam Cohen believes in Zach Robinson, and Liam Cohen doesn't stick his neck out for everyone. And he believes that he can call plays with this group of players at his disposal. So why is it going to work this year comparatively to last year in the NFC South, when he was in Atlanta?
Well, I think personnel, right? I mean, the fact is Zach Robinson, when he had his introductory press conference with the Buccaneers, we asked him, like, why did things not work out in Atlanta, right? Why was it so bad? And not that he kind of went into the details of it all, but it was very clear that he loved Raheem Morris, and that wherever Raheem was going to get a head coaching gig, that's where he wanted to go. So he took that Atlanta job out of great respect for the head coach who wanted him. It was not a good personnel for his system and what he wants to run. He had to work in offense through Kyle Pitts at tight end. They didn't really have many other tight ends on the roster to do some of the fun stuff that Sean McVay was doing in LA, somebody who he constantly watches. You know, obviously Liam Cohen comes from that tree as well. So you had an offense that ran predominantly through a tight end in Kyle Pitts, a wonderful wide receiver in Drake London. And then beyond that, Darnell Mooney, Darnell Mooney would be wide receiver 4 or 5 on this Buccaneers team. So, Zach just has way more in his arsenal this time around. I would argue the Buccaneers probably can't run some of the fun 12 or 13 personnel stuff that McVay has done there in LA. You know, outside of Cade Otton, I don't know, Payne Durham, Bauer Sharp, O'Keefe, I don't trust a lot of those guys in 12 personnel other than running the ball. But from an 11 personnel standpoint, Zach can do a lot of fun things in 11 personnel. This will be an 11 personnel team. And when you compare 11 personnel with this Buccaneers roster fully healthy with what he had to deal with in Atlanta, I don't think it's even close to comparable at pretty much all the positions, other than maybe you get a slight increase at tight end 1. Certainly, Bijan Robinson is amazing, and he's a factor in that as well. But I think that it's just apples and oranges of what we're talking about here.
I'm glad you brought it up, because every time I do, because I also bring up they ran the offense through Kyle Pitts and the push pack. Because were you living in Florida when Kyle was starring at Florida? I think you were still in San Antonio at the time.
Yeah, that was. I got here as I think Kyle's rookie season with Atlanta was starting.
Because I brought this up on ESPN Radio a couple weeks ago, and my producer is a Bucs fan. Shout out to Josh Kapke. And Josh got really mad at me and was like, Kyle Pitts is awesome. I saw him play in college. And I get he's a Gator.
Well, he's a Bucs fan also, and Kyle Pitts is a Hall of Famer against Tampa Bay.
Yes, but I more so he was you're coming up with excuses. Kyle Pitts is great. I don't believe that that's the reason that Zach Robinson stunk on ice in Atlanta. And I'm just telling you what I've heard and what I've seen. And what I've seen is that Kyle Pitts was great at Florida in Dan Mullen's system, and he has the potential to be a great pass-catching tight end. But for what the McVay, Shanahan, Zach Robinson, Liam Cohen offense is in 2026, he's not the tight end for it.
And he's a great receiver, but as you know, tight ends need the block. They need the block. You got to do some dirty work. And that's I think locally, not enough people give Cade Otton enough credit, because the guy logs 90% snap share, and you roll him out there week after week, and he doesn't tip his hand on whether it's a pass or a run. And you can't look at, when Payne Durham gets into a game, I think it was like 70-something% run, right? It's like up, Payne's in, boom, you already tipped your hand. When Cade's in the game, you don't know what the heck is going to happen. But like Kyle Pitts, you're not worried about defending the run against Kyle Pitts. When he's in the game, you're like, okay, let's make sure he doesn't beat us through the air. But like, I'm just going to bulldoze this guy if it's a run. So there are just limitations to his game. Don't get me wrong, amazing receiver, but the tight end position is just more nuanced than how many yards you gained, how many touchdowns you caught. It just, in the overall scope of an offense, it's difficult, and you have to wonder if they're able to run their run concepts all the time with Kyle out there. And you're not going to sit Kyle because obviously he's a great player. It just puts you in a tough bind. And as you said with Zach, it's like I think personnel wise, it's a little bit, round peg square hole, and that's just how it works. Of not saying that these players are bad, but with what Zach wanted to do, I just don't think it was ever a good fit. And the reason he took that job was because of his affinity for Raheem Morris, and not necessarily maybe him thinking about what he was joining. And maybe the second time around during the job search and him applying for the Buccaneers job, I think it was more of like, okay, how can I actually like run the things I want to run?
And also, Kyle Pitts, once you get to the NFL as a tight end, as a pass catcher, you got to be able to read defenses a little bit more than you probably did in college. But I'm not going to go down that road because we're here to talk the 2026 Bucs and the 2026 Jags. One more note on the offense from me, returns from being out there at practice today, Evan. I thought Ted Hurst looked awesome, the Georgia State rookie wide receiver. What have been the early returns from this wide receiver room that, of course, Emeka Egbuka was banged up down the home stretch of last year. They lose Mike Evans to free agency, and then Jalen McMillan also coming back from injury.
So first off, Chris Godwin Jr. looks awesome. Like
he looks really good today too. He had a couple of really nice crossing catches.
That's really been like Chris Godwin's like career arc for the most part. The last like 5 years is looks like a stud, gets hurt. The following year, he's kind of coming back from rehab, doesn't quite have his legs underneath him. Then the following year looks like a stud, gets hurt, rinse and repeat. But right now we're in the stud portion of his cycle because he already dealt with the rehab stuff last year. And so I think people are going to remember 2024 Chris Godwin a little bit more than 2025 Chris Godwin. So he's going to be the safety valve, third down option. Like Chris is going to be awesome. Emeka, the offense is probably going to run through him, assuming his toe is going to be just fine, which by all accounts, it seems like it is. At least entering week 1. Luckily, he got that turf toe thing done like a month before the opener. And then Jalen McMillan is probably underrated as a wide receiver 3. He's probably their best man-to-man guy. So he's also a guy that was out for most of last year with the neck injury, but his rookie year, I think he scored 8 touchdowns. He's a really savvy route runner. And then you have Tez who can pop the top off.
True.
And then you mentioned Ted Hurst, who I think they're going to build a package for him to start the year. I think his head's spinning a little bit. I think there's a lot that goes into the transition from Georgia State to the NFL. And I think the Buccaneers recognize that, but his talent, his ability to catch the ball, it reminds me like the way that he snags balls reminds me of like DK Metcalf. Like he just takes it out of the air. He doesn't let it hit his body. He's got such great hands, and his body is so proportionate that he's able to move with this fluidity at 6'4", which is remarkable. So I think in the red zone, he might be a little bit of a factor. They might utilize him in that Mike Evans role where they can. But I think my projection for Ted Hurst has been the reverse Emeka Egbuka story. Emeka jumped on the scene, was awesome, and he tailed off at the end. I think you're not going to hear much about Ted to start the year. And as we get like past the bye week, he'll get incorporated more and more as he's more comfortable. But I think that wide receiver room, if healthy, is easily a top 10 group. And considering if Emeka Egbuka can hit his full ceiling, I think they can push for top 5 in the NFL.
Well, not to contradict you, Evan, but I literally led off the show being like, Ted Hurst is a dude. That was one of my biggest takeaways from the Bucs side of this joint practice today. He had a touchdown catch from Baker Mayfield in the opening period where he plucked it out of the air, to your point, against Travis Hunter in coverage. And it was just like, oh, wow, they did it again. They found another bigger bodied wide receiver, and they're finding a way to bring him along in the NFL. It's probably going to be, to your point, a slow learning curve, just because going from FCS group of 6, Georgia State's group of 6, excuse me.
Group of six.
Group of 6.
Have some respect for the group of 6.
Listen, you also previously worked in the Pacific Northwest. Long live the Pac-12.
Yes.
So we still
my poor
technically.
Cougs.
Don't even get me started. But also you went to Ohio State. So who am I kidding here? But anywho,
I understand both worlds.
I was impressed by Ted Hurst today, and obviously, Emeka Egbuka kind of limited or not at all practicing at this point in time, or at least I didn't see him out there.
No.
So yeah. So I think that it's lending, because there is no Emeka Egbuka. It's lending opportunities for Ted Hurst to be.
He has been awesome, like all training camp long. It's just there are some operational things that the organization has kind of hinted at, like you don't know how much they're scaling down the playbook for him. That's why I think it really is going to be, hey, Ted, learn this specific package for this week. We're going to deploy you in certain situations. Go and do your thing. And so I don't know if he's going to have the full bevy of the playbook when the season begins, but he's going to have a role. It's going to be a limited role. And as the season progresses, I expect him to have more and more of a role, assuming injuries start happening, so on and so forth.
All right, Evan, before we let you go, joint practice number 2 tomorrow between the Bucs and the Jags. Who are some names, not just, you could give us some names for the preseason game on Friday. I have no idea who's even going to play for the Jags because they're trying to wrap as many guys in bubble wrap, but also who are some young guns that we should keep an eye on tomorrow and Friday who are vying to make this 53-man roster, who've stood out so far in Tampa Bay camp?
The big talker here is Jalen Daniels out of Kansas, the undrafted free agent quarterback. A lot of the fan base wants him to be quarterback 2 over Jake Browning. I don't think that's going to happen, but everybody passed up on Jalen Daniels, and after 2 preseason games, I have a tough time believing that they can now sneak him through the waivers just because he's a quarterback prospect. Why wouldn't somebody stash him if they can, especially one of those teams that isn't going to do anything this year? So now you're entering a situation for the Buccaneers where you probably have to account for 3 quarterbacks on your 53-man roster, which means you're going to have to take away from a spot. So Jalen Daniels is a guy you're going to want to watch because I think he's going to start that game. If not, Browning will get like 1 series and that's it. But Jalen Daniels is going to play a good chunk. Aiden Garnes, cornerback, his coverage skills are incredible. Like another undrafted free agent, guy that came out of Arizona, bounced around a little bit, actually like came up through Duquesne, has a really cool backstory about like donating bone marrow. When he was a freshman, it could have threatened his collegiate career. He didn't care though. It was a really cool story, but his coverage abilities are awesome. Now tackling, gonna need some work. But he's gonna make the 53-man roster. And for a team that has been pretty ticked off by Benjamin Morrison's injury history the past couple of years, like Aiden Garnes is gonna push Benjamin Morrison in that cornerback room. So those are 2 undrafted free agents that I really like. You already mentioned Ted Hurst. Trying to think of some other fun options out there. I'm also interested from the Buccaneers. Josh Williams got earlier carries than Sean Tucker in the last preseason game. And with Jalen Daniels maybe making this roster and Sean Tucker making around $3 million or so to be running back 3 on this team, is there a world where they cut Sean Tucker and then try to sign him to a lesser deal to be on the team? And if he goes, then they have Josh Williams and they feel confident in that option, considering he can play on 3rd downs. Sean Tucker's really just kind of a 3rd and 1 goal line bowling ball type of guy. He's really talented, but I don't know if his skill set fits the offense. He's a way different back than what Kenneth Gainwell and Bucky Irving are. So I'm curious what Josh Williams is going to do and if he steals that RB3 job from Sean Tucker. So that's just a few things that have kind of been percolating in the not so fun bottom of the barrel 53-man roster conversations that we've been having in Tampa Bay.
I love it. Those are names we'll be keeping our eye on tomorrow at joint practice number 2 between the Bucs and the Jags. And then on Friday, I will tell you, Joey Aguilar, Carter Bradley, QB 3 and 4, depending on who you're talking to, for the Jaguars, did not play at all during team periods today, Evan. But Jalen Daniels and Jake Browning both saw snaps in this game in this practice, excuse me. And that says to me that, he is absolutely in competition for QB2. Great stuff as always, Evan. We appreciate you taking some time to join us here in Club 904. Get back into the air conditioning. If you need anything else, you know where to find us.
Oh, I appreciate you as always. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Evan. There he goes, Evan Klosky, WTSP. Go check his workout. Like I was saying when we lost him briefly because of some StreamYard issues, one of the best storytellers in the country. You should go follow Evan Klosky, WTSP, because he is most definitely a great follow from the Bucs perspective. The Lightning, if we've got some hockey fans in here, I know we always do here in Club 904, the Rays, just does a great job. A bunch of questions have come in since Evan Klosky joined us, so let's spend the final 9 minutes of today's program answering some of those questions, beginning with Derek, who says, did the Bucs bring a lot of blitzes and stunts? I wouldn't say blitzes and stunts in the traditional sense, but Liam Cohen did say post-practice that these were much more nuanced defensive looks compared to the more static fronts that they saw from the Panthers and the Saints, both in joint practice and those preseason games. And he knew that. He told us that on Sunday. It's what he was looking forward to for the Jaguars offense to experience, because no one does it quite like Todd Bowles. And even if you didn't get the full Bowles today, you did see a little bit more creativity from a defensive scheme standpoint. And I think that's encouraging because the Jaguars offense largely held serve against this Tampa defense. Like you heard Evan note, look, like there's a couple of dudes along that defensive front. I really didn't think Yaya Diaby got into the backfield more than once, but in the same vein, Vita Vea got in too. I did not see Ruben Bain. I saw him during individual drills. I did not see him during team periods. Someone else who was at joint practice may have seen him a little bit more, so leave a comment if you did. But I didn't see him really wrecking that much havoc along the Jaguars offensive line. Did see a couple sacks that the Jaguars did take came from both the left and the right tackle. So it was not just all Walker Little because it came from the left side as well. Again, in case you missed it, I thought Emmanuel Pregnon held up well. Jonah Monheim rotated in with the first team offensive line with Robert Hainsey just to kind of, keep the body in shape and all that jazz. And I thought he looked pretty good too. So good news for the Jaguars. And I thought Ezra Cleveland once again, and you guys heard Tony Baselli say this on Jaguars Happy Hour. I thought he was the best offensive lineman out there for a second straight joint practice. Ether Dark, the rivalry uniforms, love the helmet, should have done a gold teal Jag print instead of the black on black. I will tell you, I have, and most of you gentlemen who are listening to this will have no interest, but for the ladies, I do have leggings that are literally that print that I've been wearing to games since 2020. And so I just want to say that the NFL stole my look. It's fine. Duval TV, are we keeping 5 tight ends? That's a great question. I've been workshopping this, trying to decipher it myself, because Tanner Koziel, at least in terms of what we see in practice, is clearly number 3 in the pecking order. Hunter Long has had 2 great weeks of practice, and the team re-signed Quentin Morris last year. Quentin Morris, arguably one of the best tight end 3s, which we know the McVay tree loves to talk about their tight end 3s, who are great blocking tight ends. Last year, he started the year on the practice squad. And so do you ask him to do that again, clear waivers as a vested veteran, sign on the practice squad, and then that becomes an extension of your roster, so you only carry 3 tight ends, and you also bid adieu to Hunter Long as well, who you signed to a 2-year deal last year? I don't know what they're going to end up doing, because I think that those 2 young guys are still learning. They have the higher ceilings, though. And it appears, remember, practice number 1, I asked Liam Cohen, I said, wow, you got those 2 running right behind Breton. And he said, oh, we want to throw them in the deep end and see how they swim. And they haven't pulled them out of the deep end. They're still swimming out there. And they're staying afloat. They're treading water. So I'm interested to see. That's a really great question, Duval TV. From Chaz, have you already discussed the Steezy Trev takedown? I think that is going to echo as far as physicality and motivation. I mentioned that Liam Cohen referred to it as hair on hair, which I thought was great because he didn't really know how to describe it. He claims it was not a suplex. I was looking away because once I saw the skirmish, I was like, oh, they're fighting. It is what it is. And I looked away. I'm not a normal human being who could just, watch the car on fire. Instead, I have to look away because I'm like, whatever, it's on fire. But yeah, it was one of those moments that, yes, it could be a microcosm of. We talked about this, Chaz. We just talked about at the beginning of the program about Liam Cohen's 2-team rules, be on time, protect the team. Watching Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little come to Bashal Tutin's defense, the early onset of that scuffle says to me, this is a team where you don't have to worry if Azeez Al-Shaair clocks someone. The entire 53-man roster is going to be at their defense in seconds, and the head coach is right there with them. It's good to see because that's what you want in your football club. PJ, how did Jordan and Jarian play today? Great question, PJ. Jordan Lewis did not participate in team today. He did on Sunday because Monday was a walkthrough, and he jawed with Parker Washington. It was his first extended team period that we've really seen from him as he comes back from that Lisfranc injury. He's been in team throughout camp, but maybe not as much of an extended run as what you'd expect. And so for Jarian, it's a, certainly a feather in his cap that he is available. And he also can play 5 positions, as we've talked about on this program, time in and time out. And so today you saw Jarian on the field almost every single snap. Outside, inside, safety, slot, doesn't matter. They can put him anywhere. And again, I wasn't lying when I said at one point in time, and I wrote it down in my notes, at one point in time, let's go right to it. That was 12. This is another look the Jaguars had. They had 12-4 outside. So they had Travis Hunter and Jarian outside, Jalen Husky as one of the safeties with Antonio Johnson, and Jabbar Muhammad was in the slot. Then on another, let me pull it up. That was the start. The starting lineup was Buster Brown, Travis Hunter on the outside, Jarian Jones in the slot. I swear I wrote all these numbers down. There was one point in time where literally you had 1, 4, 12, and 21 in or something like that, and like just one safety and 2 linebackers. They're all going to play. That's the good news. And again, this DB room believes they can go 1 through 11 deep. Then you throw in the safeties, and it's a whole heck of a lot of fun for Anthony Campanelli and friends. Do I expect Jarian to start at nickel week 1? I expect Jordan Lewis to start at nickel week 1. I expect Jarian to be rotated in throughout all 5 positions in the secondary. I expect Jarian to be the starter in some form or fashion, one of those spots by week 6, as long as he's healthy. Someone once told me your contract decides who starts week 1. After that, it's anyone's guess. A couple more questions before we get out of here from John. Are any other teams doing 3 joint practices? Will this be the blueprint for the Jags going forward? Great question, John. Kai Stevens asked this of Liam Cohen. Liam loves the joint practices. Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. stressed this week. They also do. They feel it's better than preseason games just because of the work that they get in a contained situation. I would expect to see more of this. I don't know if anyone else is doing 4 like the Jags. What I do know is that Mike McDaniel, renowned when he was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, that they did joint practices with all 3 of their preseason opponents. And so I think that that's going to be a growing trend for this McVay-Shanahan tree. They just love, especially practicing against each other. And obviously, Dave Canales preceded Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are where he came from. The Saints, he and Kellen Moore and the rest of that staff have a really good relationship. First-year coaches both last year. And so I think it really worked out schedule-wise with the NFC South, all on the preseason schedule, and all 3 of those coaches eager to have joint practices. Ether Dark, The Athletic has Jarian on their secret weapon list for the Jags. Okay, Ether Dark, I know you're always locked in. I want you to do the math. Who wrote that article for The Athletic, and where did he go to school? I just want you to do the math yourself. I'm not saying anything. I would argue that's pretty good intel if he is the secret weapon for the Jags, something that, as listeners of Club 904, you have heard for months now. So it's all good. Of course, as a reminder, you also can subscribe to the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook if you want my written reports from each and every training camp practice, reports during the season as well, post games. We do live Q&A videos as well. Don't worry, we're going to get one of those podcasts going soon here for our friends of the pod who are tier 2 subscribers to the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook. Actually, once we get off the air here in 30 seconds, I am going to hop on over, make sure we get that notebook for today up in written form. Free 7-day trial is ongoing. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here in Club 904 and during all the technical difficulties. As always, make sure you like this episode. I know it's going to be partial right now on YouTube. Promise we'll fix that later. You, of course, can go back and listen on demand to the entire episode on audio immediately following this. I will get it uploaded ASAP before I dive into the written version over at the Mo Bryan NFL Notebook of everything I saw at joint practice number 1. The Jags and the Bucs are back on the field tomorrow. Make sure you keep it locked at Me O'Brien TV and at Action Sports Jacks for all the very latest when it comes to the Big Cats. Until next Tuesday, we will catch you guys later.